testing. All right, I think we've got something here. All right, we got 3 viewers. Good to see everybody, or those of you that are here so far, still kind of setting things up, getting everything ready to go with all the cameras. Make sure I've got all the angles and all of that good stuff for you. Got a really messy desk here that I've just got to not necessarily clean it, just got to make some room. Oh, oops, I don't know what that was, but right, 4 viewers. All right, we got some night owls out here with us. Go ahead and share my screen with everybody. Okay, we got 7 viewers. All right, let's see. I'm going to go ahead and put this on so you can see where we are. Need to go to tomrichey.net/euro. tomrichey.net/euro. Let's see. Alright, okay, 13 viewers will be starting in just a bit. Okay, still getting a couple things ready to go, making sure that I can that we can see everything here. Alright, so I've got our study guide ready. Let's get Twitter up here. Can't do these things without knowing what's going on the Twitter feed. No, different account. Really? Alright, sorry, I just put my kid to bed and everything, and I've got this just to get a couple more things set up here, and we will be ready shortly. All right, so we're going to go to the live control room. Is that... Okay, so we got a few people. All right, we got hanging out. All right, Maria's here. All right, looks like Maria's here. All right, Laura's here. Good to see you. All right, excellent. John Maslin's even here. Yeah, I need to go ahead and retweet that. That was pretty funny. Let's see. We're going to go ahead and retweet my friend John there. All right, so how do we get on the live stream? Okay, so I need to go ahead and... Okay, so we need to go ahead and Princess Rose Marie. I'm not sure if you figured it out yet, but we'll go ahead and let's see. I think that I might have the link somewhere. Just go to my channel. Of course, if y'all are here, y'all are already here. Let's see. So we'll just go ahead. Let me go ahead and send that to her. No, that wasn't it. Let's see. Okay, it should be playing the live. Okay, I'm having a little bit of difficulty just getting everything set up, okay, to make sure people can find us. Okay, where do we find this thing? Okay, so how many people we have here? We got about 15. Okay, that should be pretty good. If anybody's got the link that's on your computer, if y'all could tweet that at me so that I can get that out there. So let's see. All right, nice one, Stephanie. All right, so if you've got the thing on the stream, if you can like help me, that would be awesome. All right, so that's the only thing that we're kind of missing here. We've got the study guide. Now, of course, the study materials are available on my website, okay, www.tomrich.net. Go to /Euro. All right, so I'm going to go, let's see, we got a couple of new notifications. Let's see. For some reason, when I go here, it's not showing up. Okay. So we'll just go ahead and do that. Let's see. I think we're good. All right. So let's go ahead and get started. Unless somebody, yeah, if somebody has that link, just go ahead and tweet it, and I'll just go, okay. Looks like Josh has got that. Awesome. Okay. So we've got, we have that link. Let me go ahead and get that out there, and then we will get started. All right. Promise. All right. So, okay, so I think I've got some things set up here. I think I know what I need to do as far as what you know, getting in touch with everybody. Let's see, we got that. I'm still learning this stuff, so y'all just bear with me. This is not something that that I've done a whole bunch of times. It'll get to where it gets easier. All right, so let's go. The review is real. That is right, Josh. Okay, so let's go ahead and start talking about absolutism. All right, so first off, let me go ahead and share with you the resources that I've got online. Want to make sure that you know what is available to you. So let me go ahead and share with you. Let's see. Let's go ahead and share my screen real quick. And we're entering into absolutism. So if you look at my playlist, I've got a playlist on YouTube, AP European History Review videos. The first 5 or so, yeah, the first 5 are on the Renaissance. The next 5 are on the Reformation. And for this unit, I've actually got, let's see, 7 videos. All right, so we've got some of my most popular videos here, probably how some of y'all found me in the first place. First of all, we set up the Foundations of Absolutism. I've got a video lecture on Louis XIV, another one on Prussian absolutism, Peter the Great's Great Northern War, which this is a pretty informal little thing. It wasn't working for me earlier, but you know, should work now that I'm at home. Let me just play a little bit of this for you because I love this. This is one of my favorites.
Students, it's snowing in the South. Makes me think about Peter the Great's Great Northern War for some reason, although it's kind of the opposite. It's not even really freezing here. I've got this glove on just for effect, or maybe trying to look like O.J. Simpson.
All right, here's my daughter. This is my favorite.
Not to be discouraged. Peter was the type not to be held back. Kid! Snowball! Ow! Okay, that's my kid. Was that funny, Caroline? Well, Peter didn't think it was very funny when he lost the battle.
Anyway, that one's a little less formal, and then we've got another kind of informal video. We've got what does Hobbes say, which you know, is another sort of you know, thing on the informal side, music video. All right, so let's go ahead and let me see if I can find any questions, comments, anything like that. Wow, previous one for 4 hours straight. I think that I can kind of see what's going on here as far as the comments, okay? So I can see this as I'm writing things, and hopefully I'll get to some of your questions. We got 25 viewers now, so let's go ahead and get started. All right, again, the review guide is available at www.tomrichey.net/Euro. All right, so just go to my website /Euro, and you'll be able to access the review guide that I've got up. And this is going to be Unit 3 on absolutism. So first of all, let's talk about what absolutism is. Now, in the United States, we have a constitutional government. Constitutionalism is the limit of government power by law. All right, so any thing that limits government power by law is going to be a constitutional government. Whereas governments that don't are absolute. Now, during the Middle Ages, you had constitutionalism, not in the sense that people had written constitutions, but keep in mind that is a small c constitution. Now, if John Maslin's watching, he knows a lot more about this kind of stuff than I do. He's a lawyer, gives me a hard time about stuff, but that's what friends do, right? So unwritten constitutions are basically how you've done things in the past. So we have a president that serves a 4-year term. We have members of the House that serve a 2-year term. Senators serve a 6-year term. Supreme Court justices serve for life. The legislature makes the laws. Both houses have to pass it. The president can veto. You know, then you can take it to court if you don't like it or whatever. All of this stuff is there, partly because it's in our written constitution, but also partly because it is in our unwritten constitution. A constitution is just the way that government is operating, like the way that you have your plans for government set out, but also keep in mind the context of AP Euro in the context of American government. When we think about constitutional, we think about limits on government. So during the Middle Ages, European kings had a lot of limits placed on their power. And so, you know, you had the nobility, you had the church, the representative bodies, and, you know, all of these things that got in the king's way. Well, absolutism is about clearing all of these things out. And I've got a lecture on this that I think sets this up pretty well. Definitely want to look at that at your own time. The Foundations of Absolutism, which describes what these absolute rulers are trying to do. So let's go ahead and take a look at our guide. And first of all, constitutionalism, that describes, for the purposes of this course, limited government. Limited government. Whereas absolutism is, you know, dealing with sovereign monarchs. All right, and what it means to be sovereign, we were talking about Calvinism earlier today. What it means to be sovereign is to be in control. So the monarch is in control. The monarch rules by divine right. All right, so shout out from Miami, Florida. All right, that's pretty awesome. So sovereign monarchs versus limited government, okay, where sovereignty in absolutism is placed in the monarch, where in constitutionalism you have what is called popular sovereignty, that government derives from the people. So absolutism is top down, you know, tending to be for like divine right, and then you've got constitutionalism, which is bottom up, that government gets its authority from the people. Now, there are challenges to absolutism that I've talked about already. If a king is trying to set himself up as an absolute ruler, you've got the nobility, all right? And then you've got the church, representative bodies, such as Parliament or the Estates General or something like that. Then you have the towns, because towns had charters that were granted by the king. And then you have the universities, which were controlled by the church. Typically. So if you are a monarch in Europe at this time and you're trying to set yourself up as the sovereign authority in your nation, then you are trying to limit the power of the nobility, of the church, of the representative bodies, of the towns, and the universities. Somebody was talking about, you know, why did Louis rescind the Edict of Nantes? Well, part of the reason Louis did that, it gave that authority for people in certain towns to practice the Huguenot religion. And Louis is thinking, no, I mean, that's a privilege, okay? I need to get rid of all of these privileged groups. The church has privileges. The nobility has privileges. The towns have privileges. The representative bodies want to have input. And the universities are not controlled by the state. So anybody who's trying to set themselves up as an absolute monarch is going to have to try to either limit the power of these institutions or to try to co-opt them, as you see in Prussia, where they work with the nobility. So there are three absolute monarchs that I'm going to discuss briefly. Now keep in mind, I've got Louis XIV, I've got a video lecture, I've also got Prussia. Peter the Great I'll get around to next year. Just got to make sure to do that right, because Peter the Great's like my favorite, and I don't want to just botch that and do it all rushed or anything like that. You know, even though that might be appropriate to be Russian to do a video on Peter the Great. Haha. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at Louis and Peter and the Fredericks of Prussia. All right, so moving on. All right, I think Nalani's back. All right, great. That's awesome. Kristen's here. All right, so Louis XIV. Louis, first and foremost, you need to know that he was the Sun King, okay? If you go into the AP Euro exam not knowing that, I feel sorry for your teacher that's going to have to see your, take responsibility for your one. Yeah, so Louis XIV was the Sun King. The reason for that is because he got an emblem. He actually did the ballet when he was a teenager. And he played Apollo, who was the god of the sun, and he thought that was cool, so he did that. All right, un ra, un la, un foi, something like that. I don't speak French, but this is one king, one law, one faith. And it looks like I skipped something here. L'état c'est moi, okay? This means the state I am, okay? Or I am the state. So the thing is, these all give you nice FRQ fodder if you get something off of for absolutism or something like that, that Louis is the Sun King, that he said I am the state, or he said something like it. He certainly implemented it. One king, one law, one faith. Really, whether it was quoted or not or something isn't as relevant as he used these. These were kind of his mantras. All right, so a few things about Louis. First of all, Louis, when he was young, had to deal with the Fronde. Okay, Louis took, became king officially when he was 4 years old, and somebody had to govern for him, Cardinal Mazarin. But the Fronde was a revolt of the nobility. Fronde literally means sling. Y'all excuse my messy handwriting and all of that stuff. All right, looks like Maria's happy over there. Good, good, good. And then some people work with the church like Henry IV. Now, look at the last Google Hangout for Henry IV. We talked about the Reformation and religious wars already. Louis XIV is Henry IV's grandson. All right, so there are some like that. All right, yo, Tom. All right, so Versailles. Now, Louis had to deal with this revolt. When he was a boy, I'm sure that made an impression on him, and Louis wanted to create a monarchy that was strong enough not to have to deal with those kinds of revolts. Okay, so what is he going to do? Keep in mind that if you've got a problem with rebellion, you've got to present yourself as stronger. So the French monarchy was dealing with this rebellion because it looked like, okay, here's this little boy, weak king, and we can just go ahead and rebel against this guy. Well, Louis remembers this, and Louis needs to set himself up as somebody that's stronger. So he implements this whole idea of one king, one law, one faith. Keep in mind those are those are the parts of his program, which I address more thoroughly in my video lecture. But there are a few things that you need to know going into the test. Okay, first of all, Versailles. This is Louis's palace. And this is a grand, magnificent palace beyond anything that anyone had ever seen. And this is to display the splendor of France and the splendor of Louis, to get people in awe when they go and see him. And with this one king, one law, one faith, well, the Edict of Nantes, that had been put into effect by Louis's predecessor, his grandfather, Henry IV, who had converted to Catholicism as a result of taking the throne. France is a Catholic country, but he says, you know what, I'm going to extend toleration. So Louis, in the Edict of Fontainebleau, decides that he is going to revoke this Edict of Nantes. And so that is revoked. So he revokes toleration. The thing is, you got to keep in mind, though, that this was actually a very popular move, because a lot of people, thought, hey, I mean, the Huguenots were a religious minority, so people were like, hey, Louis, that's great that you did that. So this is a very popular move in France at the time. Another thing you have to note is, sure, this helps him consolidate his power because he's trying to create a French nation under him, one nation under Louis or whatever. And he is revoking this to do that, but also keep in mind that as a believer in the divine right of kings, he believes that he's the shepherd of his people, that he is responsible for their salvation, and if he lets them practice a false religion, then he's not doing his job, for Almighty God. So Gallicanism, this is basically the idea of the French church. Now, Gallicanism, this comes from the Roman word for France, which was Gaul. Now, just a little bit about Gallicanism, okay, because this isn't what, Henry did. Now, Henry VIII in England decided, I'm going to get away from the Catholic Church, all right, that I'm going to establish the Church of England. What Louis does is he says, look, I'm Catholic, I love the church as much as anybody. I'm not leaving the church, but the church isn't going to get involved in political issues. That the French nation, the French monarch, is going to have a little bit of authority over who's going to be the bishops in France and that sort of thing. So Louis latched on to this movement to give the French more autonomy in their church. So Louis was, was making sure everyone was Catholic, but he's also extending his control. He's saying, look, the church isn't going to run all over me. I'm going to cooperate with the church. I'm Catholic. I love the church, but the church isn't going to get involved in political things in my realm, all right? And then John Baptiste Colbert was his finance minister. I probably should do a video lecture on mercantilism sometime. Keep in mind that mercantilism, this is a form of economics, which is about a regulated economy, regulation of trade especially, but also regulation of trade and manufacturing and that sort of thing. Mercantilism is really, something that, would take me a little while to explain, but you definitely want to understand that economic system is kind of, for that time, the opposite of laissez-faire, okay? Basically, Adam Smith's Let It Be, free trade, all of that kind of stuff. This is where everything is regulated, not just regulation of trade, but also regulation of trade and manufacturing. All right, and the War of Spanish Succession. I should probably talk a little bit about the War of Spanish Succession because that is one of the most likely wars to come up on the test. All right, so what happens here is we've talked about these Habsburgs before. All right, the Habsburgs are big players in early modern Europe because for a long time they control not only the Austrian throne but also the Spanish throne. And so what you run into here is that Charles II, now there are two Charles IIs. There's Charles II of England, who had like a ton of kids. We're going to talk about him a little later, but none of them were legitimate. And then you've got Charles II of Spain, who had 0 kids, all right, because he was impotent and inbred and all of that kind of stuff, just all sorts of things here. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the War of Spanish Succession, and I'm going to go ahead and plug that into Wikipedia. Remember, if any of your teachers have scared you about Wikipedia, don't cite this in a research paper or something like that, but if you're just studying for your AP exam, there's absolutely no shame in just plugging it in, Googling it, see what Wikipedia has to say about it, and usually whatever you need to know for the exam is right here in this first part before the contents. All right, so let's take a look here. There is, let's see, Charles II of Spain. All right, Charles II the Bewitched. All right, because this guy, you can see this Habsburg chin again, this very pronounced chin from generations and generations of very careful inbreeding. And what's going to happen here is Charles dies, and he is going to leave the throne to Louis's, let's see, Louis's nephew, I believe. It's a relative of Louis, but it's really not. Let's see. It's one of those things where it's, if I've looked it up recently, I've got it, but let's see. So the will, okay, in his will. So instead of continuing the Habsburg line, he gives it to one of Louis's relatives, all right? So Louis would have a relative on the throne of Spain. So according to this will of Charles II, you would have not Habsburgs in Spain, but you would have Bourbons. Now, that would create a Bourbon monarch in France, a Bourbon monarch in Spain, and what other powers are concerned about. Keep in mind this idea of the balance of power in Europe, that this is a big deal in European history, because not only the Habsburgs, but now the British are thinking, wait, what is going to happen here if if France and Spain eventually consolidate their monarchies? Okay, if they put their monarchies together, what is going to happen? And so you see this huge alliance that forms against Louis, because they want to make sure a Bourbon monarch, that Louis's relative, does not go on to the Spanish throne. So you've got this big war, and Louis kind of getting beaten for a while, but he ends up driving him back enough to where it essentially ends up in a draw. All right, so we see that the French are regrouping here, all kinds of stuff there, and you've really got to respect Louis, because it's like he's got several nations against him. He's got the he's got the Habsburgs, he's got the British. If we look here, we see that basically there's France, Spain loyal to Philip, Bavaria, which is a small German kingdom, and then these people. But then you look at Holy Roman Empire, Britain, the Dutch Republic, Portugal, and then part of Spain there. So he's dealing with, with quite a bit of opposition, and it ends up being a draw. All right, so they signed the Peace of Utrecht. All right, that is very important. The Treaty of Utrecht, that ends the War of Spanish Succession. The Treaty of Utrecht, which established the Peace of Utrecht, and that is in 1713. Now, that is the most important war that Louis ever fought, and is going to be the most likely that you'll encounter on the AP Euro exam. And part of the significance of that is that it is the last of Louis's wars, and it stops his efforts to try to expand France's influence in Europe. So make sure you know that the Treaty of Utrecht ended the War of Spanish Succession, which was essentially fought because of balance of power concerns, that Louis was going to be too powerful, and that was going to throw off this balance. For another good video on the balance of power, I've got what do you call it? The Congress of Vienna, which convenes after Napoleon, and they're worried about the balance of power in Europe. So Louis XIV is one of those things that upsets the balance of power. So keep that in mind. All right, so then that brings us next to Peter the Great of Russia. So let's go over a few things there. Now, Peter the Great, is taken over as Tsar of Russia, and he's taken over a very backward country. All right, like Russia was still pretty much stuck in the Middle Ages. Russia is partly European and partly Asian, and a lot of times Russia has an identity crisis. Are you a European country or not? Well, when Peter took the throne, most definitely not. All right, so that is not happening. But Peter is starting to think about, all right, so what's going on? Europe is modernizing. Russia is not. Well, what is going to happen to a nation that doesn't modernize while other people are modernizing? Well, that's going to create a problem for that nation who's not modernizing. So Peter was all about westernization. Let's go ahead and fill in some stuff. I could start rambling about Peter for an indefinite period of time. And after I finish with Peter, I'll look and see what we've got on the comment board, the question board, and all kinds of things. All right, let's see. Okay, good job with y'all answering each other's questions and that sort of thing. Ola, Coca-Cola. All right. So let me just go ahead and make sure that everybody knows where to get this thing. I think there seems to be a little bit of confusion that might have been solved by now, but let's make sure that people know how to do that and get to all the materials that I've made available. So I'm going to go ahead and share that. Let's go to www.tomrichey.net. All right, so you're going to my website and then to AP European History. And then from there, you see the course syllabus, then you see my playlist, and then you see this guide with Peter the Great on it. If you click on that, it's going to pull this up. It's a big PDF file, and it's something I'm still working on. Not every unit is done, but it's got lots of stuff on there that is going to be useful to you. So it starts off with some handouts on European wars, a list of important treaties, the balance of power, lots of important individuals you need to know, a little bit about the evolution of women's issues and all of that, and then guides for the first 5 units. Still working on Unit 6, but then I've got some stuff for Unit 7 that we can go over probably tomorrow. All right. So anyway, let's go ahead and continue, but hopefully you know where you are. And here we go. So we're going to share the screen again. Talk about some of the things that have to do with Peter the Great. Okay. So keep in mind the boyars. The boyars, fancy word for the Russian nobility. Okay. They called them the boyars or the boyari. Now, Ivan the Terrible had already reduced the power of the boyars. All right. So they're not quite as powerful as they were before Ivan the Terrible. But Peter furthers the trend. And keep in mind that absolutists weren't really building absolutists weren't really building from nothing. Absolutists were building on foundations set by some of these new monarchs that had come before them. And Peter has to continue this mission of creating a service nobility. And the way that he does this, and keep that in mind, this idea of, I mean, Louis had done the same thing in France, but they are creating a service nobility. And that is a nobility that doesn't just sit there on their farm doing nothing or whatever. This is a nobility that serves the monarch, okay, that does what the monarch intends for them to do and provides some kind of service in return. So Peter created a table of ranks, okay? So Peter's table of ranks is just set up. So basically, kind of like that that rap song or whatever, that everybody starts at the bottom, okay? So you had civil service and military service. And it doesn't matter who your daddy is, you will start at the bottom rank and you will go up to the top. All right, so start at the bottom, now you're here or here or here, depending on your merit, not depending on who your daddy is, okay? So the idea of the table of ranks is that everyone starts at the bottom. Okay, so everyone starts at the bottom in the table of ranks, and this makes people responsible to the monarch. Russian Orthodox Church reform. Now, the Russian Orthodox Church, typically religious institutions don't like reformers and people who try to change a lot of stuff. They didn't like a lot of things that Peter was doing. Peter was involved in these westernization efforts, okay? So basically to make Russia more European. And Peter, one of those things, Peter went on a big old European tour, and he had a lot of fun at this thing, but he brought back some tobacco, all right, because this was the thing in Europe. It's like, hey, check this stuff out, it'll kill you, you know, smoke a little bit. And the Russian Orthodox Church didn't like this tobacco. You know, they were very actually forward-thinking. If you think about it, they were way ahead of their time, not behind their time. So the Russian Orthodox Church has a problem with this because that is Western. Peter is all about it because it's Western. So when the Patriarch of Moscow dies, Peter does not reappoint that patriarch. Instead, he creates a synod, okay, which is a council of bishops. Okay, so instead of a patriarch, he creates a council of bishops. And what that does is it gets rid of this figurehead, okay, of this patriarch who was the figurehead of the entire church, somebody that people could recognize, and it makes church government more nameless, all right? So Peter, while he was a devout Russian Orthodox Christian, just like Louis, he did not want the church involved in his government, all right? So the wars that Peter was involved in, the Azov campaigns, you know, which basically what he's trying to do, the Azov campaigns in the Great Northern War, that was versus Sweden, this was versus the Ottoman Empire, and he is trying to get Russia warm water ports, okay, that is his destination. I've got a little video, like I showed y'all on Peter the Great's Great Northern War, where I explain a little bit of that. Okay, that Peter, when he took over as Tsar, he had a port at Archangel, but the place freezes over for a good part of the year. So he wanted a warm water port. He wanted something that would stay open year-round, okay, because that's better for, you know, for trade, really. He wanted Russia to become a trading center. Also the founder of the Russian Navy, all right. Peter was very big on naval power, which another resource that I've got for y'all in case anybody is unfamiliar with that. I've been showing y'all the review lectures, but also if you, let's see, if we go to the video manager, all right, just got my 2,900th subscriber. All right, so let's just, let's go ahead and take a look here. Where are we? Okay, the AP Euro Q&A playlist, all right, so I've got AP Euro Q&A is my other playlist where basically people submit questions to me and I answer them. I've so far got 7 of them. Now we've got How Important is Art. Second one is Naval Power in European History. I talked for about 7 minutes on that. So that's something to kind of note that I've got some things just, you know, I've also got a post-World War II review here that might be helpful to you. And this may be something that yeah, I need to put on the content playlist as well. So some of the stuff in this playlist could be interesting to you as well as you get ready to study for your exam. All right, so let's go ahead and see what we've got as far as questions. What did he write under Westernization? Okay, we want to make Russia. Oh, very good. Okay, thanks, Elizabeth. All right, so not sure if Tupac or Tom Richey. All right, yeah, so yeah, I need to get a hologram or something like that, Tupac. All right, so yeah, not a set time when this is going to be over. This is just kind of as long as y'all are here and I'm here. Then we've got that. Okay, so y'all figured out how to find stuff. Let's see. Okay, I don't see anything else, but yeah, I'll be here as long as y'all are here. And well, actually, if y'all are here like at a ridiculous hour, I'll probably just quit, to tell you the truth. But at the same time, as long as, you know, I feel like doing this and y'all are here, we'll keep going. All right. Now, keep in mind, I played a rap earlier that I wrote about Louis XIV. So if you put in Tom Richey Louis XIV rap, you can find it. You know, I had fun with it. You know, it was fun to make during Snowpocalypse when I was bored and all that. Let's turn to Twitter real quick, see what we've got there as far as my Twitter notifications. Let's see. Retweet. Okay, so yes, Princess Rosemarie is watching this instead of sleeping. All right, and let's see, we've got no questions so far. All right, so looks like Kathleen's on Twitter. All right, good to see Kathleen here. Let's see, Josh is here, one of my actual students. All right, so y'all are here, y'all are helping me out. Good deal, good deal. Well, let's go ahead and talk about the Fredericks, okay? Now, the Fredericks, I've got a video on the Fredericks of Prussia and Prussian absolutism, but one thing I want to go ahead and set straight is that there's never going to be a time on the AP Euro exam that I've really ever seen where you would have to differentiate one Frederick from another. All right, so that's something that you need to know, is that, you know, I just kind of collectively refer to these guys sometimes as the Fredericks. Okay, it's this is Frederick or this is Frederick William. And so really it's like just about any king of Prussia or later Germany, it's going to be either Frederick William, or William. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. That's just, those are the names. So I call these guys collectively the Fredericks. And Prussian absolutism, which I describe in more detail in my video, is kind of unique, all right, because Prussia is in a different situation than some of these other powers. Prussia Brandenburg had been part of the Holy Roman Empire. People had referred to this as the sandbox of the Holy Roman Empire because it's on the, you know, it's on the shores, it's sandy stuff, and really kind of derogatory sounding. Here's a sandbox here. These people weren't taking that seriously. Devastated by the 30 Years' War. I mean, we're talking about in some places 50% dead in some areas. So that's a big deal. So keep in mind that Prussia was really kind of a third-rate power. Hey, Adriana. Is a third-rate power, and you know what's going to happen is the process starts with Frederick William the Great Elector. Okay, so basically this guy starts the trend toward absolutism, and keep in mind. They call him the Great Elector. He's not a king. He is somebody who elects the Holy Roman Emperor. Electors like Frederick of Saxony, who was Martin Luther's patron, was Frederick the Elector of Saxony. This just means that you were the ruler of a serious amount of territory in the Holy Roman Empire, enough to where you got to participate in that ceremonial election of the Holy Roman Emperor. And the main thing that Frederick William I did was that he got the power to tax by decree, okay? Instead of having to get permission from people. All right. So as long as he doesn't have to ask permission, he can just say, I'm going to tax by decree. Now, why would somebody let him do that? Okay, why would you go from being able to consent to taxation through a representative body or through the nobility to just letting the monarch just say, hey, I need to tax by decree? Well, if you think about what happened to Prussia Brandenburg during the 30 Years' War and how that place was devastated, the idea here is that we are a small nation. We are a joke. We need to do better. We need to make sure that people can't come in here again and run all over us in some kind of war. And so when it's a choice between consenting to taxation and survival, then they're going to decide we would like to survive as a nation. We want to be a strong nation, and the rationale is if you want to be a strong nation, you need to have a strong centralized government. So this is what that is about, why the people accept this taxation by decree. But it's a big step because it pretty much dissolves the representative bodies and creates this, this sort of absolutist government setup. And later on, you see that you have kings of Prussia. So Prussia goes from being just a territory in the Holy Roman Empire to actually being a nation. Okay, so you've got Frederick I, then Frederick William I, the soldier king, and then you've got Frederick the Great. Okay, Frederick II the Great, one of the enlightened absolutists. So really, I've got two videos that touch on this content more because I've got the thing on Prussian absolutism, but I've also got a video on the playlist on enlightened absolutism. Okay, so that's let's see, AP Euro Q&A. If you go down here, I've got another video there that is on Frederick the Great, Catherine the Great, and Joseph II. So keep that in mind that that is there as well. So that is another resource for you to be able to take a look at. All right, so militarism. All right, now Prussia is most famous for its militarism. It was about the I believe if I've got the statistics right, it's on my video, but off the top of my head, we're talking about something like the 8th largest country in Europe, and they build the 4th largest army. So what happens here is they're a smaller country, and if they want to be militarily competitive, they have to have a higher percentage of people in the army. So the military participation per capita is very important there. And I go into my video about how a lot of stuff happens, like as far as the Prussians didn't really have to deal with the church because most people in Brandenburg, Prussia were Lutheran. They were Protestant. They didn't have a powerful church hierarchy to deal with like some of the other monarchs. And so you have this militaristic society that sets Prussia apart and really continues through World War II, this very, Prussian, Germanic militarism. So keep in mind that even though all absolute monarchs, created standing armies and that sort of thing, Prussian militarism goes beyond anything anybody else is doing. All right, let's see. Move the paper up more. Okay, Kathleen says move the paper up more. I'm going to work on that, Kathleen. Make sure that we can do that. All right. So 30 Years' War, yes, that are okay. Yeah. So Noah, that has already happened. And the whole review, will it be on the YouTube page? Let's go ahead. It takes a little while for it to load, but I believe it is the one that we did earlier is now available. So it takes a little while. It doesn't necessarily post immediately, but if I go to my uploads here, early AP Euro review, and it looks like, wow, that's already got 432 views. So that's that. So keep in mind, early AP Euro review is already up. So once this is over, like if it's past your bedtime, something like that, or you've got something else to do, you can always tune back in later. So keep that in mind. Yes, these will be up through the exam. We will keep these hangouts up, you know, just in case anybody else feels like they benefit from them. All right, let's see what else we've got here. So vamos a estudiar. All right, we got somebody going to study. That's good. All right, so when does Prussia become Germany? Okay, Beatrice. That's really going to be something for the late 19th century. Prussia doesn't become Germany so much as Prussia becomes the kind of the, what am I talking about? The core of Germany. Okay, Germany is made up of a whole bunch of different states, and Germany's going to be built around Prussia. So Prussia is really going to be the biggest, you know, part of Germany. Now, I haven't done a formal lecture on that, but I'll go ahead and do German unification tomorrow night. We'll be sure to talk about that. So keep in mind, just stay tuned. I'm planning on getting online about 7 tomorrow evening to talk about some 19th century stuff, and I'll hit German unification. So that's that. Let's see. Yes, please answer. And Lucas, I think I've just answered that, so that's good. And let's see where we are. We've got that. All right. Yes. All right. One king, one law, one faith. All right. Well, I think we're you know, think we're good here. Okay. So let's take a quick break. Let's see what we can do here. I tell you what I'm going to do is I'll go ahead and put on a little bit of my lecture on Prussian absolutism, and we'll go ahead and let's see. Go ahead and get that going. Come on.
LeBron, my favorite follow on the court and on the social media sphere. Just me and 18 million other people. Dude is an open book. But it's the playoffs, so like every year, LeBron shut it down. No more posts till... What was that? It sounded like a cannon or something. Well, that kind of freaked me out. But if I had been Frederick the Great, that would have just been like an alarm clock. Maybe I would have snoozed it or something. Really. Frederick the Great every morning was awakened by his father to the fire of a cannon. These are the type of people we're dealing with in absolutist Prussia, which was a precursor to modern Germany and one of the absolutist states of the 17th and 18th century. Now let's go back a little bit. What we know as Prussia originally started as Brandenburg, which was part of the Holy Roman Empire, which Voltaire, of course, said was neither holy nor Roman nor an empire. The Holy Roman Empire was more of a confederation, more of a glorified alliance, so to speak. Something that consisted of a lot of various member principalities. As you can see here on this symbol of the Holy Roman Empire, you see the double eagle, which was also used by the Russians, and you see all of these different symbols of principalities and houses. So don't think of it like you think of an empire as much as just a loose confederation of princes in what is today Germany. Now, Brandenburg was in the northeast corner of the Holy Roman Empire, often referred to as the sandbox of the Holy Roman Empire for its sandy soil. Also, you remember that during the 30 Years' War, a lot of people were playing around in Brandenburg. Keep in mind, this is where Gustavus Adolphus would have landed his troops in this area that was closest to Sweden. And Brandenburg was nothing special. Neither was Prussia, which was a sister state ruled by the same family that was in the early 17th century part of the Polish Confederation. As you can see here, these two territories were not even next to each other. It was over a 200-year conquest that Brandenburg and Prussia were united in what would eventually be known as Brandenburg Prussia, later on Prussia. And Brandenburg Prussia was ruled by the Hohenzollern dynasty, which we could call the Fredericks. These are a bunch of guys named Frederick and Frederick William. Most exams that you'll take won't ask you to differentiate between these Fredericks, but just a few of these guys. First of all, Frederick William, who was reigning in the 17th century in the wake of the 30 Years' War. Frederick William was known as the Great Elector. He wasn't even a king. He was an elector of the Holy Roman Emperor, somebody of some importance in the Holy Roman Empire, but let's not exaggerate it. This was just a very small state in the context of Europe, certainly not a great power like France or Britain or even Spain at the time. His grandson, Frederick William I, the Soldier King, or Soldatenkönig, maybe, we'll see. But anyway, the Soldier King, for those of us who are more comfortable with the English language than with German. The Soldier King will really be the emphasis of what we'll be talking about today, one of the chief builders of the absolutist militaristic state. We'll talk about the Soldier King's son, Frederick the Great, in another lecture on enlightened absolutism. But keep in mind that Frederick the Great, the enlightened absolutist, friend of Voltaire, that he was also a king of Prussia. Frederick William I, the Soldier King, realized that if you wanted to be a great power in Europe, that the key was to have a strong military. And so militarism is what really differentiates Prussia from other absolutist states. Now keep in mind, Louis XIV and Peter the Great went to war, and they built strong armies, but the Prussians did it better than anyone. Prussia was the 12th largest country in Europe in the 18th century and had the 4th largest army. So per capita, the army made up a much larger percent of the population than it did in any other European nation at the time. And not only did Prussia distinguish itself in the
All right, we are back, and Maria, I needed water too, and food. Had a little snack upstairs. Hope you did too. Yeah, lots of good questions. Looks like people want to hear some rapping. Now, you know, hopefully we'll have some more raps next year. I've got that Louis XIV rap. You know, I want to create like a whole like educational rap series. You know, just got this idea in my head. You know, for a Peter the Great rap from the, you know, Warm Water Records Company or something crazy, stupid like that. But anyway, I think it's gonna be a lot of fun, at least for me. I'll enjoy it. So anyway, let's see. Let's turn that off there. All right. So as far as what we've got here, no, I appreciate that that comment. Now, Nalani, just to go ahead and talk about tomorrow night, we're going to see about what we're doing. Now, tomorrow night I'm planning on doing some stuff with like the late 19th century, maybe going into World War I or something like that. I may do a hangout during the day. It's very difficult because I've got, like, you know, family obligations. I'll also teach A-Push, which those of you going into A-Push next year, I do that. So, you know, we'll be doing some more stuff with that, ramping that up. So I'm not quite sure now. Social history, it's like, whoa, I'm going to put y'all to sleep enough as it is. There's some social history we'll kind of, you know, put through there, but whew, I tell you, it gets pretty boring to talk about. Yeah, I'm not going to sit here and talk about like how many kids somebody had or what age they got married and how many people were in their family and that sort of thing. I think my viewership would like, you know, like a mushroom cloud or something like that. But I can answer some specific questions, okay? So let's see, who's our social history fanatic? I keep seeing that. I've seen that come up a few times. As far as social history, if somebody will, you know, just tell me, ask me a specific question or something like that. You can do it via Twitter, via email, anything like that. Just ask me a specific question, and I'll be glad to tackle it, but I'm not going to just sit here and talk about social history for hours on end or anything like that. So anyway, let's see. Matt, Alex, if you're still here, the 30 Years' War was on the previous Hangout, which is available on my YouTube channel. We went over the Renaissance and the Reformation and religious wars. All right. And speaking of religious wars and that sort of thing, let's go ahead and, you know, what we're going to do now is we're going to talk about the Stuarts and the English Civil War. All right, so let's go ahead and get that going. All right, and Kathleen, let me know if we've got. Let's see, Kathleen, let me know how the paper's doing. I'm going to keep on kind of looking, make sure I'm doing it right. But if you can't see something, just let me know. All right, Dodgers won today. That is awesome. I'm glad about that. Adriana, you are in luck. Woo! Yeah! All right, Adriana's like, you're going to talk about the Glorious Revolution. That's what I'm talking about right now. All right, Glorious Revolution, like, watch this. It's right there. Whoa, oops, yeah, it's right there. Yeah, exactly. All right. So you are in luck. Let's see, Yachana, that's going to be, probably, bless you, Kathleen. That's Enlightenment and French Revolution. That's good. Now, I've got some French Revolution videos up already, but I may talk about the Enlightenment tomorrow during the day or something like that, or maybe I'll start my evening hangout early. We'll see. All right, so that's kind of up in the air. All right, so let's talk about the Stuarts. We talked a little bit about the Tudors, and you've got the, you know, Elizabeth, the so-called Virgin Queen, who died in 1603, and this is where we start the Stewart Dynasty. Now, you've got James I, Charles I, Charles II, James II, before the Glorious Revolution. Let me show you something, all right? Think about a mirror. All right, if we think about a mirror right here, and I tell my students anytime you get something about the English Civil War or the Stuarts, if you're wondering which king is which, this is the easiest way to do it. First of all, it's James I, all right, and then his son Charles I. Oh, oops, I already screwed that up. All right, J1, C1, C2, J2. All right, it's kind of like if you're looking in a mirror. It's a mirror image, okay? James I, Charles I, then there's the Interregnum, and then there's Charles II and James II. All right, and yes, we are finished with the Fredericks. Moving on. All right, so Manor, I love this review too. So you're looking at a mirror image. And then you've got this. So if you're looking this way, you see that. If you're looking this way, you see that. James, Charles, Charles, James. All right. So that's how you would look at this and kind of remember that. J1, C1, C2, J2. But just remember that mirror image. Don't screw it up. All right. I repeat. All right. When it comes to any kind of memory device, don't screw it up. It only works if it works. All right, it only works if you do it right. So keep that in mind. So let's go ahead and talk about James. Now keep in mind that England had already had a tradition of constitutionalism. I addressed some of this in a video. I don't get into the Stuarts, but I set up some background for this lecture, or this part, in a lecture called Absolutism versus Constitutionalism. It's the one that's got the, you know, the vodka bottle looking thing on it. I would suggest you take a look at that lecture in order to establish some context here. And you know what? I think that that's a pretty short one. Let me just make sure that we've got absolutism versus constitutionalism, and that is about a 10-minute lecture, kind of setting up things. But for right now, just know that England had a very strong tradition of constitutional government, which, remember, constitutional government means limited. Okay. means limited. Now, so James the First is coming from Scotland, okay? So James of the Stewart Dynasty, he was James the Sixth of Scotland, and he's invited to reign in England. And so James comes in, and he wants to promote divine right absolutism. And he believes that his throne is given to him by God, and that he, doesn't have to do. He's not accountable to the people. He doesn't have to get stuff passed by Parliament or anything like that. Now, James the First was responsible for the Jamestown colony. And you know what I'm going to do, actually? I'm not going to just write on this thing. I'm going to let you take some notes. I'm going to pull up a slideshow that I'm working on and just kind of go at you from there because I think that that would probably be a little bit more effective. All right, so let's go ahead. You can go ahead and use that note-taking guide, but I'm going to go ahead and pull this up, and let's see what we've got here. All right, let's see. So the... Stewart absolutism. All right, Stewart absolutism, the English Civil War. All right, so here is the mirror image I was showing you, where you've got J1, C1, C2, J2, and then there in the middle is Oliver Cromwell, who is the military ruler during this time. Okay, C2 stands for Charles II. All right, so this makes it a little more clear. Let me make sure that I've got that's what I've got up here. That is not what I've got up there on the Google Hangout. Okay, so I need to make sure that I'm sharing the correct part of the screen with you. All right, so you should see now this this part here with the English Civil War going on. All right, so here's what we've got. We've got J1, C1, C2, J2. James the First, Charles the First, Charles the Second, James the Second. And what we're going to see happen is we're going to go from Stewart absolutism to the Interregnum, where the English don't have a king at all, and then we're going to have the Restoration, where the monarchy is restored. All right. And the central issue here, three central issues. First of all, the enforcement of state religion, the king's power to tax, and then who is sovereign. Remember, in an absolutist state, the monarch is sovereign. In a constitutional state, the people are sovereign. So James the First comes in, James the Sixth of Scotland, and he's going to rule Scotland and England, which is setting the stage for the United Kingdom of today. Stewart absolutism, and this is I rule by divine right. I got my throne from God. He started the Jamestown colony. Okay, he was king during that. And keep in mind, one thing you need to know about the colonies that the English set up is that the English colonies tended to be from private investment. This was a private company that was given a charter to make this colony for profit. Okay, so a lot of the English colonies weren't directed by the crown. Now, of course, there was the gunpowder plot to assassinate him. Some of you may remember Guy Fawkes Day or something like that. It was came to be like an anti-Catholic sort of celebration on the 5th of November every year. Now, James is very concerned about setting up this state religion. All right, so setting up a state religion which is based on the Church of England. And he's very much emphasizing religious uniformity, okay, that everyone in England must belong to the Church of England, no exceptions. And the King James Bible, this is the authorized version of the Bible. This is something that is characteristic of James's approach to governing, that, we're going to have a Bible in English, but there is going to be one version that is authorized by the monarch. Don't let me catch you reading someone else's Bible. So this is another way of the king showing his supremacy in matters of religion. Snickers Feast commercials. I love these. Let me just go ahead and play this because it's so funny. Let's see if it'll load for us. Basically, Snickers Feast commercials were around like 2007, 2008 or so. And in these commercials, there were all these historical figures that would ride in a car together. Let's see, but I need to go ahead and just, let's see, share my full screen with you. Let's see if this is going to come up. Okay, here we go. This thing is worth the wait, I tell you. Oh no, did they take it down? Okay, I think it's there. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and start that. We're going to share that screen. Here we go.
Does everybody have their seat buckled? Yeah. Does everybody have their hat buckled?
Right. I've never heard a buckle joke before. You're the first one. You're the very first one.
All right. So what's your point, Richie? All right, my point is that these Calvinists, okay, they were funny-looking people. You know, you remember the Pilgrims when you were in elementary school. You dress up like the Pilgrims and you wear those little funny hats and all that stuff. Well, we think, you know, oh, well, let's wear the funny hat. Well, there were people who wore the funny hats, and that's just kind of what they did. So, you know, this is how they went around dressed. And the Puritans, they dressed in very plain clothes, very drab colors, lots of blacks and whites and grays and browns. They didn't believe in being very showy and wearing bright colors. These were English Calvinists, okay, Puritans and Separatists, all of whom thought that the Church of England was too Catholic. The Puritans and Separatists have one doctrine, Calvinism, but two approaches, okay, because you've got two groups of Calvinists. You've got we'll just forget about the Catholics for right now, but the Anglicans, people who belong to the Church of England, satisfied, reading this book of common prayer, and then the Calvinists, you've got the Puritans who seek to purify the church, and which means that they want to make the Church of England more like Calvinist church, and then the Separatists who say, let's just get out of the Church of England, start our own. Now, keep in mind, the Puritans and the Separatists are both out of luck because the Puritans aren't going to be able to make any changes to James's church, and the Separatists aren't going to be able to leave. So that's going to set the stage for a conflict, all right? And James dies before the conflict can really come to fruition. It's going to be picked up by his son Charles, who decides to try the same sort of royal absolutism as his father. And essentially, one of the biggest things here is the right of the monarch to tax. All right. So in Prussia, the monarch wants to tax by decree, and they let him. Now in England, they're saying no. You have to get authorization from Parliament. That goes back to the Magna Carta, the Great Charter from 1215 from the Middle Ages, where you've got that the king has to go before a representative body if he wants to tax. So that goes way back in English history, and they don't want him to tax. Well, what Charles does is he says, I'm going to do this ship tax, all right? I'm going to tax, basically there was this already existing tax that only applied to the coastal cities of England. But what Charles is going to do is he's going to say, you know what, I'm going to collect the same tax, but I'm going to collect it from everybody in England. So what he says is like, I don't need Parliament's consent because I'm not creating a new tax, I'm just applying an existing tax differently. And Parliament's like, I know you didn't. Like, seriously? Come on now. And so Charles wants this ship money, and you can see where Charles has this idea of the divine right of kings. If you look at this coin, it says here, Christo auspice regno. By the auspices of Christ, I reign. So when I talk, Christ talks, okay? That Christ is, he's my main man, my BFF or whatever. Now, there are two parliaments that meet while Charles is king, known as the Short Parliament and the Long Parliament. The Short Parliament, because Charles tried to dismiss them, he dismissed them and they left. And then there is the Long Parliament, which Charles tried to dismiss, and they kept seating, okay, without the king's authorization. Only the king at this time could convene Parliament. So they're in rebellion. And this leads to the English Civil War, which is a 9-year conflict between the Cavaliers, who support the king. There's Prince Rupert with all of his fancy, colorful stuff. And the Roundheads, supporters of the Long Parliament, okay? So the Cavaliers, these are the pro-monarchical forces, and then you've got the Roundheads, who are the supporters of Parliament and the Puritans. Okay, so keep that in mind, the Cavaliers versus the Roundheads. And in 1649, Charles I is beheaded, and that is the end of Stewart absolutism. All right, I'm going to talk to you real quick about the Interregnum Six Semper Tyrannis. The Interregnum, which is a word for between kings, sometimes referred to as the Protectorate. What you need to know here is that Oliver Cromwell is serving as the Lord Protector. And he's serving as a military dictator, really, even though Parliament is rubber stamping his stuff, but very, very strict puritanical rule. They even try to get rid of Christmas, because keep in mind, like, you know, when I was growing up, I always wondered about, like, the, you know, 12 days of Christmas. What's up with that? You know, these 12 days of Christmas. I thought there was only one day of Christmas. Well, there used to be 12 days. What used to happen was Christmas is for an agricultural people. This is where we, you know, we don't have anything to do. It's like 2 weeks of December. I mean, what do? You don't have the internet. You don't have a computer. You know, you don't have running water. You know, so what are you going to do for these 2 weeks when you can't plan anything? You can't really go outside much because it's cold. Well, the 12 days of Christmas, this was a time from Christmas to Epiphany, 12 days where they would celebrate Christmas. And this celebration was like, I mean, it was a celebration, okay? It was kind of like what you might think of a New Year's celebration with Russians celebrating it or something like that. I mean, it'd be like, you know, 12 days later you wake up and you're like, whoa, what just happened? You know, give me some Tylenol. It hadn't been invented yet or something, okay? So the Puritans didn't like this. They felt like Christmas should be a very solemn occasion. And they even tried to make it to where the shops didn't close on Christmas, that sort of thing, instead of Christ Mass, which is Christ Mass, which is very Catholic sounding. They wanted to call it Christ Tide, you know, just call it something different. So they tried to do something pretty radical, and the people of England are like, you know what, it wasn't so bad when we had a king. So let's, you know, let's get out of this this nonsense. All right, so let's go ahead and take a quick look at our, let's see. Take a quick look at our thing here. So you've got the English Civil War, the Protectorate. Now keep in mind Charles I continuing the divine right absolutism, Oliver Cromwell governing during this Protectorate, okay, that the English Civil War, Charles I gets his head cut off and all of that kind of stuff. All right, so now we are ready for the Restoration. And let's see if I've got this here. I think I've just got Stewart absolutism. 12 days of Christmas. All right, so we got that. Now, Charles II. All right, now Charles II was Charles I's brother, and he had fled to France, you know, and was hanging out with Louis XIV. And Charles II is not practicing the same kind of absolutism as his as his father. Okay, yeah, as his father and his grandfather. But he's still kind of annoying Parliament. Now, also, Charles II is having to tax, try to find some more ways to tax because he can't live within his allowance. Okay, the king would get like an allowance from Parliament, and Charles could never live within his means because he had a whole bunch of girlfriends. I mean, it was just, he would put Bill Clinton to shame. Even that, you know, Bill Clinton Twitter account, you know, got nothing on Charles the Second. Which Charles II had, like, you know, a bunch of children by about 8 different women. And when you're one of the king's mistresses, you and so Charles is always trying to find ways to get more money because he doesn't have any. And there was a buddy of his, the Earl of Rochester, who was a poet. And Rochester writes a couple of poems to Charles. He writes this one poem that is, all right, this poem is to give Charles. And then he writes this other poem that's not to give him. He calls it a satire of Charles II. I can't read this entire poem to you because it's so nasty. You know, this Charles II had this notoriously, you know, nasty court life. And so, you know, the Earl of Rochester hands him the wrong poem. So Charles is like reading, and, you know, he sees this where it's basically talking about where, you know, here's a guy who cares more about trying to see how many women he can have sex with rather than rule his country. And the most memorable couplet from this poem is, "Restless he rolls about from whore to whore, a merry monarch, scandalous and poor. Charles was known as the Merry Monarch. I mean, the guy liked to party. So, you know, that's where he got his name. And that's Charles. That's basically, now Charles, one thing that happens during Charles's reign that you might want to note, the Test Acts. Okay, the Test Acts, which this was a thing where basically your test to be a member of Parliament was whether you were taking communion in the Anglican Church. Keep in mind that before the English Civil War, you had, you know, this religious uniformity. Well, the English are going to reject that, and what the Test Acts say is that if you want to, you can be whatever religion you want, as long as it's, you know, Protestant, you know, maybe even Catholic if you're not being too loud, but there's going to be some Christian toleration. But if you want to hold office, or you want to be a general officer in the military, or hold an important government post, you have to take communion in the Anglican Church. And that's part of the reason why in the U.S. Constitution it says that there will be no religious test for office, that it doesn't matter what religion you are to hold office. So keep in mind that that is evolving. So during the Restoration, some compromises are being made in terms of religion, that if you want to be a Puritan or a separatist, you know, especially a separatist, because it's like, get out of our Anglican churches, Calvinists. So if you want to be that, go ahead and be that. Now, the only thing is a lot of them have already left. You know, if you know your U.S. history, you know, the Pilgrims getting to Plymouth Rock and all of that kind of stuff. So Charles II is, you know, basically just kind of there, kind of an entertaining guy, the Merry Monarch. And then his brother James II takes over. Okay, now James II has a little problem. We talked about during the Reformation, that the English had gotten more Protestant, and James II is a Catholic, or what they would refer to in England as a papist. Okay, and he ticked a lot of people off. He was also, not only was he a papist, but he appointed Catholics to senior government posts. And he tried to pressure other people to convert to Catholicism. He learned Catholicism, picked up some of that popery from Louis XIV, who was his relative. So he's appointing Catholics to senior government posts. He's trying to, you know, do things, you know, his own way, try to promote Catholics and all that kind of stuff. And he ends up abdicating. Okay, so abdicating, that is when somebody leaves the throne. Okay, so he ends up having to flee, you know, to flee England, and the Glorious Revolution. Okay, so that is where James II leaves, and William and Mary are invited to rule. Okay, so William of Orange. Okay, so he was a Dutchman, and he is invited to come in and rule with his wife Mary, who was actually James II's daughter. And so that's how they were legitimate to rule Britain, so or England and Scotland, as they called it at the time. So they are invited to rule, and they sign the English Bill of Rights. Okay, what the English Bill of Rights does is it lowers the power of the monarch. Okay, so the monarch is, their power is going down, and then you have that Parliament's power is going up. So what is established here is a principle of parliamentary supremacy. That's one of the essential questions, really, is that who is in charge? Okay, is the king in charge, or is Parliament in charge? Is England going to join the other European states of the time at becoming absolute monarchies? Because that happened. That's happening other places. Louis XIV, the Fredericks, Peter the Great. They're doing all these things at this time. This is the same sort of general time period where this is happening. And then, you know, is it going to be the king, or is it going to be Parliament, the people who claim to represent the people, even though they represent a very small percentage of the people? So that's that. Now, let me go ahead and turn you on to a resource. You know, if you want to do me a favor and yourself a favor, I like to support other teachers that are doing this, because, you know, a year ago I had like 30 subscribers and that sort of thing. So let me go ahead and show you something. I'm going to show you my colleague John Deaver's channel. Okay, so let's now it's you know, he's got the unfortunate thing of having his name very much like John Denver. Like, even at this point, it's like, you know, as he gets bigger, it'll come up. But he started recording this year. He teaches AP Euro, and, you know, I would like to see, it would make me happy to see those 44 subscribers turn into like you know, 70 or 80 or something like that. I think it'd be great to give this guy a bump, because you know, he's given me some help and advice. I've been in touch with him, and one of the things here is an English Civil War thing, volume boost. Okay, he's been promoting my videos and stuff. So he's got that. Let's give, you know, you want to make sure to go to the volume boost one, because this one has some problems with the volume. He's also got some stuff about World War I. If we look at his videos, you know, we can see that he's got World War I. He's got the Treaty of Versailles. So mainly you're looking at World War I. Okay, also he's got the Russian Revolution, which is a topic that I am not really that strong on. I haven't really covered all that well. We've got Age of Exploration, 30 Years War. So, you know, he's just kind of gotten his start this year, but, you know, I think, you know, it's great when people are making videos, because, you know, it's just, it took me a while to get started, and, you know, let's go ahead and give him some, you know, some subscribers. So that would be awesome. John Deaver, and he's also got an AP European site. Another guy to look at is Roger Stipp, you know, which, you know, he teaches Euro in California, and he's got a lot of slidecast, which are about subjects. I think he's basically got about every course here. So if you look at Roger's stuff, you know, he's been at it for longer than me, but you can follow along on his PowerPoint lectures. He's got some other things that his students are doing. So that's another resource for you. So you've got Roger Stipp here, and then you've also got John Deaver. And so both of these guys, I think, would be great resources if you're looking for a video that I don't have, because really nobody has it all. If you're looking for stuff to review, nobody has it all. You've got to, you know, really kind of put some different resources together. All right, so you know, check out their stuff, check out those pages. They've got great stuff. Now, during the time of William and Mary, John Locke wrote 2 treatises on government. Okay, now I've got an e-lecture on Hobbes and Locke, which you are welcome to watch, so I'm not really going to stress that all that much, but just keep in mind that John Locke, in his 2 treatises on government, his defense of natural rights, life, liberty, and property, that is all tied up with the Glorious Revolution, whereas Thomas Hobbes is writing during the time of the English Civil War. So that'll give you some context for that. And the Stewart Dynasty, you've got those four kings, James I, Charles I, Charles II, James II. Now, yeah, and I've got that here. If you think about J1, C1, C2, J2, and then you've got William and Mary, and then you've got Queen Anne, which Queen Anne dies childless, so that's the end of the Stewart Dynasty, and it passes to the House of Hanover, which was a German noble house with ties to the House of Stuart. So basically, ever since the end of the Stuart Dynasty, the English, you know, or the British, the UK, depending on what incarnation it is at the time, they're ruled by monarchs that are actually of German descent. So that's interesting. They've got a Germanic monarchy. During World War I, the current house, which was called the House of Saxe-Coburg-Gotha at the time, they changed their name to the House of Windsor because, you know, when they were fighting the Germans, they didn't need to have a monarch with the surname of, you know, the Germans, the Krauts, whatever they were calling them at the time. So that's something to kind of note there. So let's see where that puts us right now. All right, that puts us into philosophers, okay, and I need to do some stuff with printing and all of that kind of stuff, okay. So I'm going to go over this very, very quickly, all right, because I've got that Hobbes versus Locke video that is my most popular video on YouTube. I would encourage y'all to watch that. I also jam out with a little bit of Mastodon at the beginning of that. Love me some Mastodon. All right, so let's before we do that, let me just check the questions. Let me check Twitter, all of that. We've got some new stuff here. Let's see, a couple notifications. All right, good deal, good deal. We got a few people here. All right, I don't see any fresh questions. All right, so we'll just kind of go on with that. Let me take a look at the comments. The isms, Talmud, we'll go over the isms pretty soon. Probably tomorrow evening I'll do that. William and Mary signed the English Bill of Rights. All right. All right, Arkansas. All right, good to see y'all here. I'm from Louisiana originally. All right, we got the South. All right, so going over after the English stuff. All right, so I'm going to talk about philosophers, and then I'm going to talk about the Dutch Republic for just a little bit. Okay, so and I'm going to try to wrap this up because it's midnight over here on the East Coast, and I need to get some sleep at some point. So we're going to go ahead and kind of try to go into that mode. Let's see, when go along with us. Let's see, what's she talking about there? I like it better when you. Oh, okay, I see. She likes me to go along with the things there. All right, so let's go ahead and kind of look at that, and we'll figure that out. All right, so let's see, board protect. All right, very good. I like how y'all are answering each other's questions. All right, so let's just go ahead and take a look at this here. So there are a couple of philosophers of divine right absolutism. There are three different things you got. You've got absolutism here, and then you've got constitutionalism, but there are two varieties of absolutism, okay? There is divine right absolutism, and then there is Thomas Hobbes and his philosophical absolutism. All right, so that's philosophical, that's divine right, they're both absolutism. Now, John Bodine and Jacques, they are both French, okay, and so both of these guys are writing about the idea of sovereignty, okay, so the philosophy of absolute monarchy is all about sovereignty, which resides in a monarch, okay, so they're arguing with that. They're arguing for that, and basically, Charles I ends up getting beheaded, and Louis XIV, lives to a ripe old age. Then you've got Thomas Hobbes, who doesn't believe in divine right absolutism, but he's got a philosophical absolutism, which I talk about in my video, where he's basically saying that without a strong man, without this Leviathan, everybody's going to kill each other. Now, John Locke, writes his two treatises on government, and of course we got life, liberty, and property. The consent of the governed, the right of revolution. I've got all that stuff there. I've got a little summary there, but watch my Hobbes versus Locke video because that's important. And then I've got a handout on the Dutch Republic that is really, it's not so much something that you would complete as some of these things I just kind of make a guide that is a primer. So I'm going to go ahead and, just sort of wrap up at this point because the Dutch Republic, they're a commercial giant, merchant oligarchy, all that stuff. So keep that in mind that that stuff's there, and that'll get us through this. So we're going to shift into Q&A mode now. All right, we're going to shift into Q&A mode, and I will answer a few questions before I sign off and go to bed and all of that good stuff. I appreciate folks joining me, and I hope this has been convenient, especially for people, west of the Mississippi and that sort of thing, because, on the East Coast it's kind of late, but I know, it's still bright and early over there if, 8 o'clock is bright and early. All right. Sleep and AP Euro. Pretty soon we won't have to choose. Okay, so I'm going to wait a couple minutes for it to unlag so that I can see kind of where we are. See if any questions come up either on the question answer thing or on Twitter. All right, so waiting for questions right now. What's under lock? All right. Okay, yeah. Let's see. Maria, what is under lock? To treat. Yeah, the thing is, some of these guides I made a long time ago, so y'all just, I mean, like, disregard some of this, because some of the older guides, I need to go back and clean them up, and I'm making new guides, and by the time I'm through making new guides, then you have to go back there. Remember that what's important is not what is in the blank, okay? Keep this in mind, that this is not what's important, okay? Anything here is not what's important. This is what's important. You know, when I ask my class a question like a week before the AP exam, and they're all thumbing through their notebooks to answer it, and I'm like, wait, y'all have an exam in a week. Why are y'all doing that? So keep in mind that the main thing is not necessarily what goes in a blank, but do you understand Hobbes and Locke and what's going on there? And I think after you watch that video lecture of mine, if you haven't already, a lot of people have probably already seen that one, but you definitely want to watch that and understand. Keep in mind that you need to be in a position to be able to explain this stuff to somebody, because half your exam is the DBQ and the FRQs. Where you'll have to do that. So keep that in mind, that if you're following along with me and I kind of deviate from the sheet, it's okay, because it's really not about what you're able to write down on there as much as what you're bringing into the exam. So make sure that you understand this stuff that we're talking about, to the point that if you know, there were an FRQ, that you could explain that to someone in essay format. All right, you're welcome, Frazier. All right, the new model army. You know, Josh, you need to know that. Let's see, Nalani. I'll try to look for your questions, see if I can find those. All right, so let me go. Let me get over here. These things are coming pretty. They came all at once. All right. So you're welcome, Maria. All right. So I got to Maria's question. You know, Tara, that's a possibility. Josh, basically Cromwell, you know, had the new, you know, he led the new model army, and that was the Roundheads and all of that kind of stuff. Let's see here. Live hangout during the day, around what time? It's just, Daniel, that's just hard. It's going to be very difficult for me to do my during the day schedule tomorrow, so if I have some time, I'll do that. And remember, if you can't look at it live, you can always tune in later, but it may be that it has to wait till the evening, or it may be that there is some time in the morning or early afternoon, because I'm going to try to get as much review content up as possible, but, you know, I've got a 4-year-old, and so sometimes it's just very difficult for me to, you know, unless I've pre-planned it. I've got to spend some time at home. I've got a big U.S. history review coming up that I've got to do during the day, Monday and Tuesday. So keep in mind, just follow me on Twitter at Tom Richey. You can set it up to where between now and the exam, you can get notifications when I tweet, so that if you've got a, you know, your email or a smartphone or something like that, when I tweet, it'll just send it out there. That's what I'd recommend if you want to make sure that you're on top of everything as far as when these things are going to happen. But I do have some pretty firm plans to be here at 7 p.m. tomorrow. All right, so let's see what we've got here. All right, so okay, Nalani, what are your questions? I'm looking for them. We've got a lot of things here. I can't really. Okay, questions. All right. Nalani, again, the blank, it's not so much what goes on the page, all right, as what you understand. Do you understand the English Civil War enough for the AP exam? And you know what? The easiest way to do that is not so much just looking at the blank necessarily, but going in and just Googling English Civil War. And if you just go in here and click that and look at the stuff above the contents, okay? So the English Civil War was a series of armed conflicts and political machinations between parliamentarians, roundheads, and royalist cavaliers in the Kingdom of England over principally its manner of government. The First and Second Wars pitted the supporters of King Charles I against the supporters of the Long Parliament, while the Third saw fighting between supporters of King Charles II and supporters of the Rump Parliament. The war ended with the parliamentarian victory at the Battle of Worcester, yada yada. The overall outcome was threefold: the trial and execution of Charles I, exile of his son Charles II, and the replacement of the English monarchy with at first the Commonwealth and then the Protectorate under Cromwell's personal rule. Monopoly of the Church of England on Christian worship ended with the victors consolidating established Protestant ascendancy in Ireland. Constitutionally, wars established the precedent the English monarch cannot govern without Parliament's consent, although this concept was legally established only as part of the Glorious Revolution in 1688. Now, thing is, I can't really think of anything else that you would need to know that's not right there. Okay, so keep that in mind that, you know, really it's like you want to follow along with me and stuff like that, but when it comes down to, like, questions, like, you know, let me make sure I understand this stuff. So in this case, if you feel like you understand the English Revolution, I mean, the English Civil War and all of that stuff, then you should be fine for the exam, because they're not going to be testing my blanks. All right, so let's see. Today is actually Mother's Day. All right, so yes, it is Mother's Day. So tell your mother you love her if she's still there. All right, so you're welcome, Elizabeth. You're welcome, Elizabeth, because she shouted some thank you at me. That's awesome. Okay, so we need to do some DBQ stuff or FRQ stuff. I'll talk about a little FRQ, that sort of thing. All right, Daniel. For Leviathan, look at my video on Hobbes and Locke. All right, so let's see. Warm water port, Toby. The warm water port in the Azov campaign, we're talking about the Sea of Azov, which is an extension of the Black Sea, which kind of a current event. This is right around Crimea. This is the same area where they're going to fight the Crimean War in the 19th century, and the same area where Russia's trying to extend its dominance right now to make sure that they've got that warm water port. They want to have influence there. So really, you've got the same sort of thing going on now, that Russia, you know, has always wanted a foothold on the Sea of Azov and the Black Sea. All right, so got that. All right, you are welcome, Chuchi28 on Twitter. All right, so let's see what we've got here. All right, please go to the scientific revolution. Maria, that is definitely something I would like to cover. If I'm able to do a daytime review tomorrow, it is going to emphasize the scientific revolution, the Enlightenment, and go into the French Revolution, even though I've got some videos on the French Revolution, so I'll hit that kind of light. So that will be happening tomorrow, and I'll just kind of keep y'all informed on that. Okay, so it looks like things are, you know, let's see. Oh, awesome! That's great, Minor. Thanks for the compliment. And it looks like things have kind of slowed down. So thank y'all for watching tonight. Y'all go ahead and go to bed. Get some, you know, get some stuff there now. Chuchi28. I have a video on the partition of Poland. Look at my playlist before you ask me questions. Shame on you. Yeah, so make sure, go through my videos, look at the Q&A videos, look at the content videos. Like, if I can't be here personally doing this, I think the content videos are actually better preparation than what I'm doing right here, because they go in depth, they're very organized. This is more informal, so I think those formal content videos are going to give you a much better overview than anything that I'm doing right here, even though the live element is kind of cool. So keep that in mind, that I do have the partition of Poland up. All right. Oh, yeah, Josh Jacob, if you could send donations. All you have to do, if you want to reward me for my time or something like that, when you get the ads on the videos, watch them all the way through, or watch them for at least 30 seconds or half the ad. If you'll view the ads and not skip them, then YouTube will pay me more money. All right, so there is a way that you can make a little donation without actually having to donate anything to me. So you can support my work by viewing the ads when they come up. That much appreciated. I would love to get that. I mean, YouTube doesn't. I mean, I'm not able to quit my day job or anything like that, or even my night job. I've got, like, you know, a second job. Wait tables here and there a little bit. So one day I'm hoping that I'll get enough from YouTube to quit that. So, you know, if you want to contribute to the Tom Richey quits his second job fund or something like that, just watch the ads. That's great. All right. So fascism, Nazism, communism, all of that kind of stuff. We'll see if we get there. You know, I'm really trying to emphasize the early stuff more than anything. It's been a while since y'all have done that, whereas the other stuff's a little more recent. Now, one thing I've got, let's see, Elizabeth, let me direct you to the last video on my playlist, and it's not a video that I've released publicly. Yeah, if you're on the East Coast, go to bed. You know, I'm on the East Coast, but Elizabeth's out there in California, so I'm going to keep talking to her and some people that are out there, but, you know, you don't need to be staying up all night for this stuff. All right, so, you know, very important to get sleep for these exams. All right, so what have we got here? All right. AP Euro Q&A. Let's look for the content playlist. All right. I've got a video that I didn't like the way that it came out, so I'm probably not going to release it publicly, but I've got a totalitarianism rough cut, okay, is what I'm calling this. And what it is just me lecturing about the rise of totalitarianism. I go into fascism and Nazism and the interwar years.
Then we.
Okay, so that's me doing that, but that is there, and that's a 22-minute lecture. You know, it's a pretty thorough treatment. So that would be a good resource for you. It's just, it is at the end of the playlist. Like, you won't be able to search for that video because I haven't released it. It's a rough cut, but I decided to add it to the playlist. So if anybody feels like they want to review and it would be helpful, and I think it would be helpful, the slideshow actually I posted last week, you know, which has gotten a lot of views on SlideShare. Another thing you can think about is you can look at my AP European History PowerPoints. If that helps anybody study, let me show you my screen and just make you familiar with that resource. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and share with you. And if you go to PowerPoints, History PowerPoints, in fact, if you just go and Google History PowerPoints, then you can, it's going to be the 3, 4, it's going to be the 5th link, okay? I'm trying to work my way up. And if you go to European history, those PowerPoints you see on my formal videos and stuff like that, they're all here. So you can pull that up. And so last week I did that totalitarianism in interwar Europe PowerPoint. Or you can go to slideshare.net, Tom Richey, and that'll get you to, I've got, you know, slides here. It's not all Euro, but see, this is, I've got a recent one on German unification. Then I've got some U.S. history stuff kind of plugged in there, here and there. Then we've got reform in Britain. So there are some things that I haven't gotten around to making lectures on. Now you've got some like the Congress of Vienna and the Civil Constitution of the Clergy. The beauty of SlideShare is you can kind of like go through these on your own. Like I can put this on the screen and I can just pull that up and start doing that. So this, you know, is the rise of totalitarianism. Look at the aftermath of all that, the Weimar Republic in Germany, Dr. Evil with all that hyperinflation. You know, so that all of that stuff is there, and I'm comparing left-wing and right-wing totalitarian regimes. So that's there. Now, German unification, I haven't made a video about, but you know, it may be helpful for you to go through this, look at some of the graphic organizers and that sort of thing, and what's going on. It may help you study. If that's something that helps you, great. You know, if it doesn't, then hopefully something else does. So that's just one more thing that could be useful for you. All right, so let's see what we've got here. All right, watch the ads. Hashtag watch the ads. I shall watch the ads. Yes, watch the ads. That needs to be a quick thing. Maria Theresa, I wouldn't do, Tom, I wouldn't do any better on Maria Theresa than reading that first part of Wikipedia would. I mean, that's one of those things, like, I'm just not, Austria's not really one of my fortes, so just some things, like, just look at that, just like I showed you on the English Civil War, look at that stuff before the contents, and it gives you a just basic summary of that and what you would need to know for the exam. So just keep that in mind. Let's see. Thanks so much for this. OMG, holla. All right. Time to remove ad block. Absolutely. Can you remove YouTube ad block? All right. Mr. Offensives in Scandinavia. All right. Excellent. Excellent. Say hey to Gustavus Adolphus for us. All right. So thank you. All right, Malia. Glad to hear that. Nalani, this East Coaster needs sleep too. So it looks like the comments have kind of died down. We've gotten below 30 viewers. So, you know, this has been fun. Hopefully I'll keep my voice. I just need to drink a whole bunch of water and make sure I take care of myself or something. So we're going to get on that. I'm going to try to get some sleep tonight. And hopefully I'll be back tomorrow with a little more review. I might actually have some other teachers trying to come in and, you know, take over some of this stuff for me so I'm not, you know, talking the whole time. So anyway, appreciate it. It was fun hanging out. We're going to hang out again pretty soon. Until next time.